Hello and welcome to another how-to video tutorial. So now we're gonna review the necessary steps to retrieve a vegetation index image. So the first step that we need to take is to search for the satellite images available. So that can be done using the post method in this endpoints in search, and we need to specify the field ID by the end of the endpoint. The authentication needs to be done using the API key in the headers and the body of the request. You can select the time lapse that you would like to get the images. So, like for example, if you would like to retrieve the images available from for the month of October, then you can specify it in here. So we are selecting the starting date October 1st and the end date October 31st. You can also select the different satellite images, satellite sources available. So in this case, we're going for the Sentinel-2. Once you run the request, you're going to get a request ID, and with this request ID, you can retrieve the results of the search in this other endpoint. So that uses the get method, so it doesn't have any body of the request. You just need to authenticate using the API key and indicate both the field ID and the request ID by the end of the endpoint. So the endpoint is also the scene search endpoint. Once you have selected the view that you would like to use to make the calculations to render the image, then you need to set a task in our server to render the image. So that's done using the pause method in the field imagery endpoint, specifying the field ID by the end of the endpoint. The authentication in this endpoint is also through the API key, specifying the headers. And in the body of the request, you can include the view ID that you have selected. You can indicate also the vegetation index that you are interested in downloading, and the format of the image, and a callback URL so that you can later on simply download the image from the URL. So with that done, you can use the request ID provided in the previous step together with the field ID in the endpoint field imagery as well, using the get method, authenticating also again with the API key in the headers, and the endpoint will return the callback URL from where you will be able to download the image.